Hello, people.
The Bears
identified
the guy that wanted, and they made sure they got him by trading up one spot.
Actually, no one's here, so
North Carolina
fuck
quarterback Mitch Trubisky.
the demon here.
Is at the center of the Bears draft, and he's at Howard Club where he joins the squad. Josh,
I don't even want to
what the Bears did. I didn't
Hopefully, no one shall
That was
show
the
up.
reaction there when the Bears made
My
the
dad and
trade.
my grandmother are currently out.
Scott, we were surprised when they made the trade, but when Roger Goodell uttered the words, Mitch Trubisky, we were all stunned.
So, we're going to try to read this book. Hopefully none of them show up.
North Carolina quarterback Mitch Trubisky, and that move was costly. It cost the Bears the third pick, 2 third-round picks, and a 4th-round pick to have the signal caller. Trubisky himself was shocked to hear his name called as well.
I don't know how I feel exactly. This is an incredible moment for me and my family. I'm just so excited to be a Chicago Bear and take the next step in my journey. I didn't even know I was going to get picked.
Okay.
The commissioner went to the stand and said my name.
Fishers from outside.
So it was an unreal moment.
I understand I'm doing this a little bit because I don't know what they're showing
all
up.
time growing up with Walter Payton. So I'm looking forward to where that Bears
Agenda
and the city
or
of Chicago is my home now.
our Cyclone ruins said by the local tribe to be
not only because of everything they had to give up just to move up one spot, but because they
by the local tribe to be older than mankind and once an outpost of the Fishers from outside, as well as an evil of the evil gods, Tisdagwa, the Kalulu. The first of these two names is probably the degeneration of the name Fishers from outside, would seem to be the old ones, the great ones, the gods of earth who have their habitations atop Kadeth in the cold wastes and the dune lands. They are watched over by the other gods. Fucking TV.
Besides their close Second Amendment supporters will have to check something else.
Fucking loud. I apologize. Next page. The great race of youth. In the shadow out of time, Lovecraft presented a race of time-spanning beings he called the Great Race. They dwelled upon the earth from 1 billion until 50 million years ago, and had the curious ability to project their minds through time, both into the past and into the future. Although it was much easier and also more useful for them to project into the future, where they could acquire future arts and sciences. When one of their explorers located a suitable host for its mind in the time period it had decided to visit, an exchange took place in which the mind of the host fell back into the past and took up residence in the body of the time traveler, while the mind of the time traveler entered and occupied the empty vessel of the host. It was thus a kind of possession across time. The lost organism remained outworlded, unexchanged, but itself and identity was that of the member of the great race that entered it. The result of this time-spanning possessions by members of the great race, when a man suddenly became evaluated by a higher genius and gained remarkable abilities to which he had never been shown any sign. It was one of the great race and his abilities, his vacant shell, while a man's mind resided in the body of the time traveler did not less than 15 million years into the past. Although Lovecraft did not dare to state such a thing, it would be reasonable to speculate that Jesus was a man possessed by the mind of Yithin, which abandoned his host shortly before his crucifixion. Sometimes the members of the great race who were the point of the death projected forward through time permanently, never meaning to return to the dying bodies. When they projected into a human being, the result was outwardly a sudden and complete change in personality. They remain for the duration of the human host's life. Usually the mind of the one of the great race wished to return to the past and its own body. It used its host to build a machine it required to mentally travel across the ages. This was a mechanical device of rods, wheels, and mirrors, having one large convex and circular central mirror. The size of the device was not great, around 2 feet tall by 1 foot wide and 1 foot deep. The members of the Great Race were described by Lovecraft as iridescent, rigorous cones 10 feet in height and 10 feet across at the base, with 4 discernible limbs that contained the head and the other organs spreading from the apex. They used the huge claws attached to the ends of these thick limbs for communication by clicking them and rubbing them. Another limb had on its end 4 red trumpet-like appendages used to ingest a liquid nourishment. And on the final limb there was a yellowish round head some 2 feet in diameter, having 3 large dark eyes spaced around its circumference. From the top of the head grew 4 thin gray stalks with flower-like terminations, and from its bottom dangled 8 greenish tentacles. It is those tentacles that were used to manipulate small objects such as a pen, not the claws, which were reserved for carrying heavier objects such as books. The beings moved after the manner of a small by means of a rubbery gray substance that fringed the base and provided locomotion by rhythmic expansion and construction. They needed to sleep. Being of a vegetable nature, their blood was a thick green anchor, and they were produced by means of spores that grew in clusters on the fringe around their bases and developed only underwater. There were a few youngsters of the species since their lifespan averaged 4,000 or 5,000 years. These are not the original bodies of this race, which were perished aeons ago on this distant and dead planet of youth, when the great race foresaw the death of their planet. They sent their minds searching through the space and the future of time for the best replacement bodies and found the species of conical creatures in what to them was Earth's future, but is to us 600 million years into the past. The conical species was ancient, even though having existed for 400 million years. A vast mental migration took place, in which the minds of the great race seized permanent control of their new bodies, and the minds of the displaced conical creatures were trapped in the old vacant bodies of dying youth. Lovecraft described the original bodies as a horror of strange shapes, though whether the horror was inherent in the shapes or was only produced by unfamiliarity, it is not clear. The minds of the great race inhabited their new conical bodies continuously until 50 million years ago, when they escaped destruction again by departing in another great mental migration into our future, where they will take up resistance in the bodies of what Lovecraft described as a Chiloporus species, a race of intelligent beetles that will begin the ruling race of this planet immediately after the passing away of mankind. When they come from Yith, they found this world and 3 other planets of our solar system, ruled by an alien race of half-polypus creatures from beyond our cosmos that were blind and only semi-material, so that at times they were not visible to the naked eye. Although wingless, they possessed the ability to fly through the air. It appears to be the same race as known in Necronomicon as the Old Ones. The Yithians found it impossible to reason with the Old Ones, or establish any common understanding, due to their utterly alien natures and thought process. So they used their knowledge of science to build weapons and drove the Old Ones from their windowless cities of black basalt into caverns beneath the surface of the ground. From their arrival on our planet until their departure from their conical bodies into the beetle race of our future, the Yithians kept constant watch over the gateways to the underworld, where dwelled the remnants of the Old Ones. It was a subject that they did not discuss with the captive minds that studied in the Great Library. Toward the end of their resistance and the conical species, there was a sense among the great race that the Old Ones were growing more powerful and gathering their resources for some kind of retaliation. Lovecraft intimates that it was just such an attack that the Old Ones that was the disaster that drove the Yithians to seek refuge into our future. The great race traveled the ancient world in enormous airships or boat-like vehicles powered by atomic engines, which they drove along rude roads. Their libraries contain vast stores of knowledge called from all ages. Indeed, they were said to contain the sum total of all knowledge of the races that had ever existed, both in the past and in the future. The mind of the host species that had undergone to exchange, of which the mind of a member of the great race that found itself inhabiting one of these Raguscons was permitted to study in the library of the capital city of Panokatus. Once understood its situation, it grew called into its fate, which was usually not permitted but temporarily. This happened after the great race finished interrogating the displaced mind to learn all that could be readily gained from it that might be able to any interest. The study was a way for entrapped alien mind to pass the time. While waiting for its return to its own body, it has served as way for the great race to extract every possible bit of useful information from the alien mind, which was encouraged to write down its thoughts and memories in the library. For the purpose, ink, paper, and pens were always provided. The books were printed on sheets of tough cellulose and bound in such a way that they would be opened from the top downward rather than from the side. Each book was kept in its own individual protective case of light, gray metal that was decorated with mathematical designs and marked with identifying hieroglyphs. The library at Panacotis was adapted to the bodies of the great race, having no chairs but tall pedestals for the placement of the countless books that lined with walls and wooden shelves. Pedestals also held crystal lamps to facilitate reading and writing. The library was a vast stone building with high vaulted ceilings of massive blocks and round glazed windows, and its stone walls were protected with heavy bars to prevent escape attempts by the captive displaced minds in the future as they pursued their strange and unsought course of studies. Few tried to escape, since they recognized the fatality of their attempt. They became reconciled to their situation. A human being who returned to his body after possessing mind of the great race had finished. Using it usually retained no detailed recollection of what we had learned in the library, but might remember vague impersonations of the city of Panacotis and the surrounding parental jungle in later dreams. The Necronomicon alludes to a secret cult of human beings that is a partial knowledge of the great race, and sometimes gives aid to these time travelers in their explorations of their future, which is our present. The great race is also mentioned in parts of the text of the Panacotis manuscripts, and Lovecraft asserted the ruins of its cities can still be found. Ruins of its cities can still be found beneath the sea, in the form of vast blocks of stone that outline giant causeways of foundations of colossal buildings, but appear too large to be artificially cut. The ruins of Panacotis itself lie beneath the great sandy desert of Australia, where remains the library's survival in our own time. Even after the passage of 50 million years, the shadow of time, the challenge from Neo. Well, people, that's it for now. We're almost ready to start our ritual. When that happens, I need to make sure everyone's gone. It's probably the best to do it a Thursday or a Saturday. And when the ritual happens, Daniel will be back. The real Daniel. And hopefully everyone will be happy. Won't you be happy, Reaver? Oh, in case you're watching, Reaver, I'm looking more into you. I'm finding information. Found out you live in Australia. Getting closer. I have ways. See, I found out you have contacts with several YouTubers. And by judging by your comments, I found out that you didn't live in the US. I found out you live in the Australia. Now, I have to figure out your name. Once I do that, it won't be long before I find you for real, your address, and where you live. So, see you later, Reaver.